and a happy new year. Welcome back to Activated, the future of content. It's your boy OG Baka, aka the Hair Naughty God Body, aka a cutie, a offspring of mama's beauty.
Damn, bro, we got new ones now.
Yeah, we back in 2020, man. You know, I'm joined today by my guest and Canada team member Moss. How you doing, brother?
What's up, man? I'm chilling. I'm loving life. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah,
grateful to be here, man.
It's crazy because like so early in the morning, we've already counted some wins today.
Yeah, bro.
And we're
like an 8-hour day so far.
Yo, Moss has to tell you about like his he gets up at like 5:30 every morning. He talks about it on every episode, and it's crazy. But we're glad to be back.
Yeah,
2020, new things happening. Mm-hmm. And our guest today, I'm so excited because he's actually more a part of the Canada story than he may know.
Yeah, I think so.
And just in terms of, you know, someone that influenced, supported, and, you know, just empowered us to keep doing what we're doing. So our guest today is a community leader, an educator, and someone who's putting our students in DC, our kings and queens, in the driver's seat of their own education and building a new generation of leaders and creators. So I'm very proud to welcome Mr. Marshall Pollard of the Creative School to the Activated Podcast.
Hey, glad to be here. It really is an honor. It's cool to, we talked, you know, before going hot, just about how the story is connected. And I appreciate sitting in seats where you get to just sit in that, you know, be reminded of like where you are right now. January 8th?
Yeah, January
8th. Started way before that, you feel me? So honored to be here, excited to see where this conversation leads us.
Man, I already know we're going to have some big bars on this episode.
Yeah,
I can already tell it.
You can usually feel it. The early conversation we had was a nice little preface.
So check this out. This is our first episode back for the new year. Mm-hmm. And before we get started, I want to give a special shout out to everyone who has gotten us to 2020.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
We started this business in June of 2018, and it's been a whirlwind run ever since then. And everyone who's been a guest, everyone who's been a clientele of Candor Labs is definitely a part of this story. So we want to give a special shout out to all of them, Marshall being one of those folks as well. And in that light, I'd like to start with what we're grateful for today. We haven't done that in a while, and normally we
gotta bring it back.
Yeah, we got to bring it back because, you know, acknowledging the power of the small things going on and how they're moving you forward, I think is very important to centering ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so, with that being said, I'm gonna toss it off to Moss. What you grateful for this morning,
man,
bruh?
I'm just like a heavy great. I had all the feels this morning. I don't know why. There's just some days you wake up and you feel like that. Some days, you know, you kind of have to fight to find something that you're grateful for, right?
Yeah.
And that's just being human. But I think I'm grateful for time, man. I'm grateful for time today, and I'm just, you know, and everybody else's time that I work with, and everyone that revolves around me in their time. I'm grateful for it. You know, from my family and all the way to my coworkers and even Marshall right here, man. Yeah. Taking time to come out and rap with us, I'm grateful for it. The 3 meetings we had before this thing started, grateful for their time. they're allocating time for us for the future, for our growth.
Yeah.
So we can have time for our families and everything else.
That's real.
So that's what I'm grateful for.
I'm actually going to pick that up and run with it because
scoop and score, bro.
You know, I'm actually grateful for the very same support, but for those that give you support in the ways of just listening when you need to speak. You know, I've had to just hit people a couple days and just be like, yo, I just need to rap with you right quick. I need to unload something on you. And I really appreciate those people that are ready and willing to give the ear when you need that. And that's been very powerful. And it's actually been the inspiration that I needed this week to get through. Yeah. So very powerful and appreciative of those people. So that's what I'm grateful for today.
Yeah, this week is interesting, right? It's like even with the weather that we've had, but it's like the first full week of the year. And so I think for me, my gratefulness comes from just how I was able to end the last year. You know, it's a new decade. And just I'm blessed to be able to have a double wide trailer in the middle of nowhere, Florida. And cell phones don't work out there. And so it's opportunity for me to end the year, in the decade, walking, listening, trying to set intentions about what this new year is going to be, you know, which is natural. People a lot of times set goals or resolutions. I think I'm trying to follow rhythm. You feel me?
Yeah, bro. That's
absolutely.
Like, you know, we've got goals. We know businesses have goals, individuals have goals, but I feel like you said, some days you wake up, you've got, you know, you're motivated by this type of energy. Something happens that was not expected, which is life. And so just to be mindful of rhythm, right? And how do I want to set intentions about what these next, you know, couple of weeks as we get into this new year, new decade. And so my rhythm is just trying to, right now, to be honest, is trying to put sentences next to dollar signs. I feel like that's my rhythm. Like if I'm spending time doing that,
we're in the same rhythm, bro.
right? Just in the beginning, you know, start of the year, you have all these ideas, but you can't be just having ideas. You got to have the ability to see what they are, know what they cost, and you know, get that shit done.
And then get the
curse on
capital.
podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure. I know we're talking about the greatest in the kingdom, but we keep it real around that.
Nah, that's real. Yo, we do. We absolutely do.
I love that shit. By the way, I need to know a little bit more down the road about the double wide trailer in Florida. What are you talking about right now?
Yo,
I need to
Marshall's low key a country boy.
So my pops is in the Navy, so we moved around everywhere. But the only place that still is home is Florida.
Okay.
You know, and my mom, her pops bought this random place in the swamp in the 80s. It's not much land, but it's land, and they put a double wide trailer on it, and pretty much every Christmas, every holiday, we would go up as a family, and I'm one of the only ones that still
goes.
But got to go, and that's kind of how I like to end each year. So
Cool.
Come through, man. We call it Happy Home Farm.
That's a dope.
That's dope.
You'll come through one of these days.
Yeah,
We'll do a
make
podcast
that
episode there.
People don't own enough land, bro. Just think about it.
Yo, dog, I got
We'll talk about it.
We gotta talk about it.
We'll
Yeah.
talk
I'm
about
from
this episode,
Nigeria,
that's why I
bro. All
bring it
my
up.
family back there is like, "Where's your land?"
Where's your land?
I'm like,
This is
bro,
all you
I got
have.
the point of life.
Right.
No, it's privilege for sure. It's blessing, and I don't take that lightly. But it's also like something that makes me think about how to be a steward. And some of the moves that we're trying to make this year are connected to like what could we grow in that land.
That's
I love it.
That's amazing.
I love the rhythm piece, man. Like, because rhythm comes in waves too, right?
Right.
So everybody looks at January and goes, "All right, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to get this bag now?" And it's like, bro, the rhythm of the shit should have happened like months ago. To
You
get to
already
this
beating
point
that
now.
drum,
You know what
dog.
I mean, you're thinking about it here. You got to be thinking about it. I love it. I love that good analogy. Use it.
Yeah, that's really dope. So let's get into the Marshall story a little bit. You told us how you grew up in the South and you were traveling in the Navy, but or your family. But tell us more about your background. Where are you from? How did you get here? Where did this passion for education and helping come from?
Man, it's a good question. It's a question we should ask ourselves on the daily somehow.
Yeah.
The way I answer it is, I tell people I'm from the Navy, but I call Birmingham home. So my dad was a command master chief in the Navy. He was from Pennsylvania, but from what I know, had a choice, and the military was a good choice for him.
Yeah.
To get away and to seek something other than what was chasing him. You feel me? But with that being true, chase the world and saw the world, and we went every 3 years with him to different Navy bases. And
Wow.
I'm the youngest, but my sister went to like 9 different schools.
Wow.
You feel me? So just a lot, but like again, got to see a lot, and it led me to I got to be one of the first in my family to go to school and played football growing up, acted growing up. It was kind of a little bit of everything. Definitely spirituality was important to me growing up too. Went to a small school in Birmingham to play ball. It was the last place I could chase a dream. Played for like 9 weeks, tore my ACL for the second time.
Damn.
Wait, what position did you play?
A wide receiver. Got big hands. slow as shit, but I can catch it if you throw it to me. But anyways, I say that because my story of transience and moving is a big part of my identity and the way that I've been able to, and just being an ambiguously black person in this world. Given the way that my mother influenced my melanin. But that being said, like one of my earliest memories, I was with my sister and we were at a Starbucks when like Starbucks weren't cool.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like a new thing. You know what I'm saying? It was off the base and we went, and I just remember seeing, just like we can see right now, people passing by, and I was like, Leslie, isn't it crazy that everybody's got a story?
Yeah.
I just remember seeing that because I had seen so many different neighborhoods and different people and the way that people moved and looked, and some of them looked like me and some of them didn't, and just to realize that we all have that in common.
Yeah.
That everyone has a story, right? So that my story led me to Birmingham, fell in love with the city, and the story of me that is in this city, the story of us that is in that city, the role that King and Abernathy and
Yeah.
Arrington and people who I revere as, you know, not just foot soldiers but saints.
Yep.
And you know, fell in love with that city, got really connected to a housing community, a housing project called Southtown. Ran an after school program there and had
Dope.
no idea what the hell I was doing, but just like wanted to be present and proximal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up, instead of living on campus, which I couldn't afford, like lived right next door to that community, and really just like started an after school program from
That's dope.
from it, you know, and got to know families and kids and learned enough about myself that I had no business telling, you know, mothers and kids what
Mm-hmm.
their after school program should be, right? And just that clear fact that I didn't share their reality enough to make decisions for them, right? I had expertise, I had something to offer, but that, man, like people have a story, right? And that story should influence what not only young people, but I believe all of us, like what we get to create throughout the day, the things that we're good at, the things that are challenging us, the things that we're aspiring to. And if those things don't enter how I, you know, have an after school program for Montez and Cortez, then their mom Love is going to have something to say, because we're not offering you what you need, right?
Already hear
It's
the
just
foreshadowing of the story, bro. That's just fire.
Trying to connect the dots too,
no,
right?
it's
Trying
great.
to be mindful of like, this is something I've been thinking about too, just like where does this work that I'm committed to come from? But you know, fast forward, ended up trying to transition that after school program to Love. Their mother, Montez and Cortez, were two brothers that I was really close to. They're probably in their 20s now, which is crazy.
Wow.
But they were like 13, 14 at the time. They're probably in their mid 20s.
Mid 20s now. Wow.
Yeah, because they were in 7th grade, and that was 2006, 7. So a minute.
Oh wow, 13 years later. Yeah.
But nonetheless,
you realize you're getting an old man too.
yeah, right. I realized that I'm like, dang, that was some kids ago, some schools ago. Anyway, ended up realizing that I was at the wrong side of the school day. You know, coming after school, and not having that context of, you know, what kids you know, maybe need during the day. So ended up teaching, came up here to teach. That's what led me to come from Birmingham to DC. Taught 1st, 3rd, and 5th grade. Ended up realizing that my gift, my magic, the thing that I want to spend my time doing when it comes to this work, is not in instruction, right? And that's a calling. Like, you got to know it's not. And there are a lot of teachers right now who don't have the calling of instruction. They may have a different calling that allows them to be really good teachers.
Yeah.
But
I hear that.
I do believe
I hear that.
teaching is not just instruction, right? But that is what makes really good teachers great.
Yeah.
Is when they, from an instruction standpoint, they like to teach kids how to learn. That wasn't me. I was fascinated by what kids were walking into the school building with. I was fascinated by
their story, right?
Their story, right? Like, I did home visits for each one of my students, so to sit down at their dinner tables, and my kids, when I taught, literally just down the street from here, for real, international. Like, most of my students were from the south side, but the other 50% were from all over the world. So to sit at those dinner tables and to realize, like, there's a lot of hope that enters my classroom in the morning that I might be judging when they be spazzing out and driving me crazy because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of challenge. There's a story.
There's tensions there.
There's tensions there,
That
right?
shapes your curriculum, right?
And I was fascinated by that.
Damn.
I was fascinated by that, and I just realized, like, man, I'm not trying to teach double-digit multiplication. Right? I'm trying to make sure mom and dad and whomever is connected to this kid are showing up and they have a voice and making decisions on, like, when their kid wakes up and goes to this place, how does everything that we're trying to make happen at home, like, actually manifest?
Actually happen.
Right? To the best of our ability, knowing that we can't give all kids everything, but we certainly can try to include their story.
That's powerful, because you're really shaping communities by approaching education in that way. You know, working with the parents and saying, you know, all right, I know what you're bringing in. I know what you hope for your child, and I understand what the child wants in this situation as well. And we'll get to that, because I think that's what really the Creative School balances on, is that taking all of those considerations from the unique communities that are throughout wherever we are, and saying, this is what this child needs, or these are what these children need to be ultimately successful in the way that the world is changing today.
Yeah.
So how did you get to the Creative School? What is the Creative School? How did you get to that, and what is that philosophy behind it?
That's a good question. I think it's connected to that next part of my story too, and so I'll capture that, and that is, I ran out of money here in DC,
Okay.
And went back home to Birmingham and was an organizer across the state, mostly in Birmingham, trying to sit in between Stoops and schoolhouses, right? Figuring out what is the story here, and how do we create a space in the school and in the community where people see themselves as a part of the same circle, right? So my organizing took shape as building a network, and I started what was called the Ed Network, which still exists today. They still are doing network nights and things that literally put people in a circle. And we started with 13 people in a circle, and it grew to over 150 people meeting weekly in 6 different schools, feeding into one high school, right? So we're hitting at an elementary school and then a middle school and then the high school, where 1,000 members were showing up and, surfacing how they wanted to connect the dots.
So this is students, anyone,
teachers, mentors, entrepreneurs,
parents, interested parties.
A principal sitting next to a student and a mother, and seeing that they have far more in common than they have in disconnection, right? And what that taught me and what that brought me back up here to do was to create those spaces, right? And I call them marketplaces. I believe everyone has a gift. Birmingham's the magic city, so I've learned to call it magic, right? I've learned to say that you Moss, OG, you have a gift, something that you uniquely
can
offer.
party,
this room right here, this podcast right now, that it's not mine, right? But what if we sat in spaces, especially across those lines of differences, especially given that we've inherited a world that was designed to disconnect us,
right?
True.
Make us see each other as other, isolate us, make us angry. We got Republicans and Democrats, we got black folks, we got white, we got brown people. We are separate, we are other. Instead of, we're sitting in a circle, and a mom from the projects is sitting next to a doctor, whatever that means, who's running a school, and they see themselves as parents.
Right.
Connected.
They have
now
that
they're
vibe.
like, all right.
They share. I get it.
So now what do we do?
That's
now
where
that
growth
we are
happens.
exactly affiliation matters.
Right.
And when you start to realize that we've inherited disaffiliation, but we don't have to live in that world. We can create those marketplaces where people exchange gifts, their magic, and create a reality that matches the story that brought them to the circle.
That's fire as shit. I'm sorry.
I'm telling you, dog.
Break that in. But
not,
man.
Unfortunately, I think that's so not normal.
It is.
Like people
Those
hide
spaces
behind their
don't
fears,
exist,
right? Like the disconnection between what everybody sees themselves as is like it's a product of fear, right? Like they don't.
It's
they
all
want
fear.
to be the doctor. They want to be the person that's not the mom with the
other.
single.
They don't
mom,
want to be
right?
the other.
They exactly. And,
Because
but everyone is the same fucking
fighting,
person.
fighting
Exactly.
for it, right? And I think Beverly Tatum, she wrote this book, Why All the Black Kids
So sitting on one side of the table, right?
And the preface, or chapter 1, is something that sticks with me, and it talks about this. She talks about this is the air we breathe in.
Right.
It's like smog, right? So everybody's breathing in. It's not like just on the south side of DC. Or
Right.
We are all breathing this in, and I think it takes conversations in spaces like this, marketplaces where people they're like, nah, that's air.
Right.
That's not truth. That's not what, if we woke up today and did what we said we all in this circle wanted to see happen, created the spaces and the exchanges and the resources to turn ideas like a podcast that sat in a circle, right, and then turned into a now season deep podcast where kids are leading a podcast.
Exactly.
Right? That's our story because the space existed, the marketplace was created for people to say, I got something that you need, and maybe you have something that I need, because I can't run a Kids Can Be podcast without Jakaya.
You can't run
Right?
Kids Can Be Big podcast without Jakaya, right?
We need both of those gifts. We couldn't have done it without OG either. So how do we get kids to have an opportunity where they wake up and with an inherited design that does tell them a story of disconnection, they get to rewrite a different one because they literally see it. They show up to places where people who said that they wanted to see something happen with them are living that out. Like just before this, I came from yoga, where 11-year-olds are leading me through sun salutations in the morning, and mothers are walking by and seeing like, what if it was that was so normal,
Right.
and that not only are those kids leading me in yoga, but they're inviting mom
To come and do yoga.
to come and do yoga with them, because why? We woke up today and we could take breaths together. That's different than big grandiose ideas that around what does it mean to be successful in this world. why don't we just lay brick by brick together?
It's creating a new culture.
A new culture, yeah.
And acting in that culture. So if we are able to, if the culture became, I have to get up in the morning, I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to take this time with my mother. And now the wellness that comes with that, the approach to the day becomes totally different.
And I think we have to it begs us to ask the question, who gets to design that?
Because it's already been designed.
It's already been designed. It's flawed. I happen to believe, it's one of the reasons I don't work in public schools. I happen to believe public schools are working. Some people don't agree with that with me, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay to talk about that. I think the story of 1954, when we were allowed to be integrated
Ruby
into
Bridges,
schools, you know, where we moved black bodies into one school system, never designed for them to sit in the school.
Exactly.
And we said to all these black educators, it was cultural legacy to be an educator.
Right.
You can stay there. We're not moving your body.
Yeah.
We're going to put you in a situation that proves you can't read, you can't write, you can't participate. Right? And so there's a lot of myths around third grade test scores and prison beds and things like this, but it is not by accident that we live in a world where some children have an education that by waking up and going to school, it leads them to be well. It is not by accident that we have some children, many children, far too many children who look like me and you, who are waking up and going to school. And the diploma on the other end of the aisle does not give them access to well-being.
Yep.
So
That's right.
So 58% of the kids on the South Side are graduating, from high school. No wonder.
Yeah.
They're not well. So let's rethink, redesign maybe, and ask ourselves who gets to design. Not adults with power, but children who are gonna, are supposed to be the most important around us. Let's give them the chance to rethink what they get to spend their time doing. And I bet we'll be better for it.
Yeah, because we're listening. That was the most powerful thing about coming into the creative school and just seeing the marketplace. I remember I had to draft a proposal to come to the marketplace and present the idea for the podcast. And I remember sitting there and I was like, yo, I told them what it was. I get, they should understand that this is a marketing tool. This is going to help the soft skills. They should get it. Why am I doing a proposal? But then I sat in that room. And when everyone saw I did a proposal, they were like, "Oh, look at this nigga!" But
this man came prepared.
I came prepared.
Some people raise their hands. I got an idea.
Yeah,
sit down, please.
But I remember, he broke us off and he said, Bakari over here, he has this idea. If you guys are interested in doing this idea, you can come over here. Bakari will present this idea to the group. But I remember, had to be at least 15 folks that came over and just had the ideas and were spitting ideas out and making this happen. And I realized, I was like, I had to fully participate in what this organization was. I couldn't enter this space without acknowledging what it was and what it was actually doing. When at first I was coming into this space like, this is good for me to do. It's going to help me get ahead. And it tells a story in the right way. But it was later, after coming to the network gatherings, after meeting and designing all of these classes and saying what we're doing here is bigger than putting out a piece of content. It's about giving these students a place to express. I remember doing the empathy interviews. Sorry, my allergies are acting up today. But I remember doing the empathy interviews, and that's something that I actually incorporated into Candor Labs. We have to find out with our organizations what they're trying to achieve, why, and back into what we're building for folks. And to do that with the kings and queens of the creative school and listen to a student say, I want to tell this story about my community so that people don't think this way about me and the people that come from the South Side. It was mind-blowing.
Yeah, you're a great example of this, man. But, the creative school, just for the folks at home, to be real clear about what we do, the creative school exists to connect students who we call queens and kings because we believe, identity matters. To connect students and creatives. We call creatives families, educators, neighbors, entrepreneurs like yourselves, and leaders in the community. So we exist to connect queens and kings and creatives to design personal and communal well-being, right? Again, we exist to connect queens, kings, and creatives to design personal and communal well-being. We believe at the end of the day, if a queen or a king wakes up, that they should be designing actively, like you said, participating, showing up to spaces. That's the first thing that we do. We create spaces where they get to do that. Spaces like yoga, like baseball and brotherhood, like chess, like clothing design, like coding, like mural arts, like Southside Water, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
Where they get to show up and be in connection with people like you who have a gift that matches when we do the empathy that OG talked about. We call it story-centered design. So when we're capturing stories, when we're asking them to go interview their neighbors, we're asking for needs. We ask, what piece does our neighborhood need? And we get hundreds of those answers. We sort through those answers. We then give the spaces that the designers need to be able to create goods and services and experiences that honor those needs. So we just finished a big design challenge to address living in a war zone, right? There are a lot of design flaws in the way that we've placed some of our people. I'll just put it at that, right? This is the war zone that my students, our queens and kings are caught up in is not by accident. It is by design.
Right.
One grocery store, 78,000 people, right? Let that sink in.
Right.
Right. What does that mean for how we are how we feel and live out the disconnection? And we don't need to get into the CIA and the role that our government has played in creating forms of addicted disconnection. Right. But to be honest, to tell the whole story, we wanted our kids to not just wake up and go to sleep hearing gunfire, but to design something that says, I can, yes, I live in a neighborhood that does have gunfire, and I am waking up to do something about it. Right. So we had hundreds of interviews, 36 designers who were 11 to 18 years old. They spent 7 months designing goods and services. Like I brought a pack of one of our designers, Zakira Queen's Eye. She designed Gums Not Guns, a real live pack of gum, because she heard her neighbors say that we should leave here. We should just leave. And she said, I want you to stay. I want you to stick. I want you to stay connected because I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
Right? So she thought gum, right, and had her own logo and everything, to a healing circle that was designed by 2 seniors in high school to lead people in their neighborhood through a healing process if we ever lose a life, to 2 sisters who designed an OG meet and greet, right, where all the leaders in the city, the Tony Lewises, the Trayon Whites, you know, the Ronnie Moes, the people who are in this work to address living in gun violence, that they got to lead conversations with parents and students, but following a facilitation designed by 2 sisters who, for whatever reason, don't get to go to school together because they're older, they're younger and older than each other.
That's weird.
Right? No, it's not weird. If you're in 9th grade and you're in 5th grade, you don't go to school together.
Oh, right, yeah, I get it.
Right, but you live with each other. You go through the same things with each other. You might be a good tandem to create something together, and the Creative School creates that space where those creatives like yourselves, the others that showed, the 350 people who showed up to the community reunion where we tested, right, the part of the design process where you test the goods and services, you get feedback from your users who told you this was their needs, right? We want to be the organization that over time, year after year, has spaces where a growing number of people who know they're a part of a network, right, get to show up, can do yoga on Wednesday mornings, they can come on Saturdays to play chess, whatever it may be, but that they also can repetitively design goods and services that honor what their neighbors need. Imagine kids being able to ask their neighbors what to create to be well, and then they get to wake up and do it. That's what we were.
You put it right into action. You deliver right to the needs of the community.
I mean, it's phenomenal. How are you measuring that impact?
Yeah, so that's the story of 2020, right? One of our greatest areas of growth is to be able to pick the story. Right, there's so many things, like we are in the social emotional learning camp, right, in terms of the education industry when it comes to this question, how do you measure impact? It's hard for us, we are not trying to increase literacy scores, right? That's not the data point. That what we're trying to say that is, if young people are spending their time reading about what they're designing, it will likely lead to not only some of the social emotional learning measurements, like, you know, grit and integrity and self-discipline and hope, things that we're measuring, but it'll also lead to those academic outcomes that we want.
Right.
The issue with that is that if a kid is reading but still living in a war zone, how do we measure that impact? So our big stance that we're taking, because we believe that a network, which is a whole other business that we run, because this is a whole back office to make sure that kids are not showing up to random people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? You know what, if we exist, if the nonprofit
Yeah.
exists to connect creatives and students, we got to make sure we know exactly who they're being
Everybody who
connected to,
walks through the
how they're
door.
being
Hell
connected
yeah.
to, how they exchange information, how do they stay in connection. But that's really it, right? What we want to measure is connection, right? And the way that we want to do it is if we are equipping Queens and Kings to capture stories in order to turn those into the spaces and the goods and services they create, we have to be really good about what it is that how they capture and how they invite people in.
Right.
But that's what we want to measure. What if we could say that Janelle, who's another designer of ours, has 60 connections? She's been connected to 60 creators.
Yeah, create your own metric, right?
Right. So we have metrics to play the game.
Yeah.
Here's
Right.
our social
For sure.
emotional learning. Here's how when our kids come to X number of yoga classes, this is the
what
impact on
happens.
attendance, behavior, academic outcomes
have
that
that.
you're measuring.
Yeah.
You're paying billions of dollars to measure.
And that goes into the air, right?
Exactly.
That goes into the plan that's already been established.
Exactly. Now you're hip. Now you're hip. And here's the thing: we get those data points at well after the kids in the grade.
Right.
So we get
Right.
third grade information when the kid's already in fourth grade. So we're just
Yeah.
what's the other story that needs to be measured? And my belief is if we can measure connection, if we can get good at saying, Janelle, you invited somebody to capture their story, which meant what's their magic, what are their opinions on their aspirations for their neighborhood, what piece does their neighborhood need, what are the challenges that they're facing. Now you're surfacing needs. So what if Janelle did that for 100 people, which she would,
Right.
she's that type of designer. How do we keep track of that? How do we figure out when those same people that she invited show up to the design lab when she's telling them, I heard you say, this is your need, this is your need, this is your need, this is your need. So
Right.
I'm designing this. How do we measure that those people came? Not everyone she invited is going to come.
Right.
But isn't there an impact that she is inviting creatives like yourself
Right.
to show up routine over the year? That adds up. And if we
Right.
could measure how that adds up,
There's
I
a
believe
change there.
we could measure connection.
I think you create that. You have to identify what a connection is,
Exactly.
and give it like tentacles, right, and pillars, and check mark. Take like 4 connections, make it 4 pillars. You hit them
Right.
all. That's one connection.
Right.
That
And
connection lives, right?
Yeah.
It's always
you guys
baseline.
should come to our war room session. So this
Yeah.
is this
Yeah,
year, right?
this
This
is-
is 2020 for us. One of our strategic goals is how do designers know that they're growing as a designer,
Yeah.
Right.
right? And then how do we show up to any space? And I can sit in a principal's office or a funding meeting or a mother's a front room, a living room, and I can say, here's what
What your
the
student in
Queener
this
team
program
is,
did.
This is how they're doing to what we know. And we're gonna get
You could
better
tie
at
that
this.
into like even economical things, right? Like if she has a gum brand, right? Like multiple connections. Her gum brand was probably like the gold connection, right? There's normal ones, and there's ones that are connecting a lot of other ones together,
Right.
and then you can touch like products and brands and like the possibilities of growth and revenue
Exactly.
from that as just a case study.
Yeah.
But the value is really everything else.
I think what's
You know,
fascinating
that's
to me
dope.
in
That's
this moment
fucking
right
dope.
now, where it's like those connections that you're bridging, as you build a connection, that student now has 10 opportunities to now expand their learning. So if you bring a doctor in, or you bring someone like us who are content creators in, now you're bringing them together, and now she learns how to be a podcaster, she learns how to be a social media manager. And I talk
Yeah,
about this
absolutely, bro.
about
It's
building
just
into the skills.
100%.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. We don't even think about it. We
And
do
it's
it 'cause
all-
we
and it's all
network with people,
empowerment.
and that's how we empower all the. Yeah.
Because
You're absolutely
because
right.
what's most powerful is that we're taking up space, we own this space, and now that space, when the child or the king and the queen looks around and sees, wow, they came here for me, they're empowered, and now they're going to speak to their truth directly back to us, you know, in the spaces that, you know, maybe they thought that they didn't have that, or they thought that they didn't exist. So that empowerment and the acknowledgement of that, you know, for the recipient, for the king or the queen, that's invaluable. It's priceless. You know, it's crazy that we have to come up with the metrics just to keep it going and keep it sustainable.
But that's how the design works.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we've got to change the design. We've got to. I want to live in a world. The vision of the creator. I want to live in a world where, when it comes to the bottom line for young people, in our most marginalized communities when it comes to what it means to be successful at school.
Mm-hmm.
We rethink like their days, their moments, because I've buried kids, right? I've buried too many students, and instead of these reporting periods that help us, you know, get from this GPA to that GPA with this, those let those stay important, because they're not going anywhere. Public schools are not going. Well, at one point we thought the creative school needed to be a school.
Yeah.
Now we want it to be a network.
Right.
And we want to have our own physical space and all that, so that kids always know there's a place to come and be a designer, be a creative. But at the end of the day, if public schools, which need to continue to exist and get better, can, you know, do the work of academic development, right? But we're giving space and opportunity for them to use that development in a very specific, magic-centered, their gift, make their community and themselves more well. Like that, to me, needs to be the bottom line. Not get good grades. Make you and your neighbors well, because there are people out in this world living that way, living well.
Don't
even realize it. Like they walk in.
That's the design.
That's the design.
You know, I'm literally going from the south side of here, like, and just seeing
change,
like seeing what it means to live in this world, right? And we occupy this in ways that students that I was on the yoga mat with this morning don't.
Right.
And that is the design, and we need to rethink what's important to us. Are our kids healthy? Are our kids safe? Are our kids secure? Maslow taught us a lot about this.
Maslow's hierarchy of roles.
This is things that we all agree on, but we don't live. We live in a disconnected. It's them. They're other.
Right.
There are nonprofits for that.
Right.
This is life.
This is life.
This is
Exactly.
life for them, you know?
This is how you exist, and this is how we design to take advantage of that. Amazing stuff, bro.
Yeah. Just rejuvenating, man. Like fucking inspiring shit. Like really, like,
you know, gotta turn ideas into action, man. These kids need to. I want to also live in a world in the next 5 years. That's like long term. I want to live in the next, like, where we have the money to run this.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're still in startup mode, right? So we've done the pilot that I've described. We've created the test of this, right? But this same creatives like Kira, who's a 6th grader now.
This is dope, by the way. Did she design this herself?
Yeah, she did. You see her little ZY at the lips.
Yeah, this is fire. I know.
She wants to come out with another
Needs a
one.
job?
Yeah, she does. She's about to get some offers too. So she is being featured in another platform that I'm connected to, The Great Discontent, which I don't know if y'all are familiar with, but they have a online presence, and then they do like the big magazines. That's what they're known for. And they feature and tell the stories of creatives, risk takers, and innovators. And I happen to know the person that is now the new owner of the platform, and really wants to double down on that commitment of telling those stories, but really broadening the context of who gets to be included in who those people are. The risk takers, the innovators, the creatives, right? And, you know, Zakira will be the first feature of The Great Discontent, which is also, you know, featured Leon Bridges and, many other creatives at a level that I can't think of. Reggie Watts, people like that. I can't think of all of them right now. But to be honest, not many of them are people of color. And so I can't remember a lot of them. But I can remember those. But, you know, that's the conversation that we're not able to change, right? Is that it's like here, not only as a black woman, a black young woman, but also, like, regardless of age, why are we not considering kids
for these opportunities or to tell these stories? How does that? Why
are we sending, like, when in a food insecure? Like, think about this in the history of the world. When have people in food insecure places sent their entire families to buildings to have nothing to do with creating food security?
Yeah,
that is so abnormal.
It's a wild ass thought. You're right.
Yeah, maybe like in America we don't do that, but in the history of
the world, right?
Yeah,
that doesn't happen.
Food.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, we don't have this thing, so we're going to send you over there to play with something else. That's not going to fix this problem at all.
To distract you. And
And
it might be good
the
distraction,
cycle.
right? We have good intentions. Kids get food when they go to these places. We say that.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? Kids have people who love them in these places, in some rooms, not in all rooms that they go into. But, you know, Lord, hopefully there are schools where the kid has a room that they can go to and feel connected, feel loved, feel all of that. But that is absolutely not the truth. You know, we're not going to sit here and pretend that, you know, that's because we don't have the results that prove that that's true, right? What if we just rethought that. We asked questions of neighbors about that. What would it mean to be personal, to have peace? And we use that broad term because people can connect with it, right? And from 8 to 80, you can talk about what peace is. You feel me?
That'll surface.
But if we can get that to data format, where the stories that answer that question turn into very specific needs that kids with their creative willingness, that sometimes when you get to our age, you're not willing or able to do, right? But what if we tapped into that? Rewrote a narrative that said, put them in the driver's seat, but show up. Because we can't do a podcast without OGs showing up.
Right.
We can't do a pack of gum without entrepreneurs who are in the food industry making sure that we're doing this the right way by regulation, right? So we need to show up. But I bet if we'll show up for kids in ways that we won't show up for adults. The question is, can we make it lucrative?
Can we make it lucrative?
Because that's how it works. Which is why we want to create these models, these things that can be lucrative for young people. When they design something, they can get paid for a healing circle or a pack of gum or a bottle of water that they create, right? But we also have to do the work this year to make sure that all that's ethical. You just got to figure it out, because we got to move money. You got to figure out how a network of people create things that forces economics, because that's how movements start, right? You just have to do that so by the book, and because you got to play the game. It's like playing chess. You got to do it right, because kids deserve that, but also to be successful, you got to know how to play the game.
Absolutely, man. And the most, I think, what I'm connected to the most is that you're building a pool of impact companies. They come from their own environment, and that's why they're doing this. You're not starting a restaurant group, and you're not doing and you're not just, I need to make all these restaurants make me $1 million each. There's a specific purpose behind why this exists.
Right.
There's an impact behind it.
Right, and I can get behind that.
Creating that ecosystem.
This part of our conversation started around data. How do you measure that? That's what I'm trying to fall in love with. How do we get good at every time someone answers the question, what pieces your neighborhood need, that turns into data.
And the impact behind these can turn into your data.
This pack of gum comes from 60 interviews.
Right.
These needs that this designer and then this team of creatives who showed up to help her. Like, I want to get that specific.
And then even like what is this gum going to give back monetarily itself? Like that, it's in its own.
Every pack of gum.
For every pack of gum is something you can pull.
Exactly.
Let's make 100 of these. That's your fucking metrics.
Yeah. Exactly,
right.
Exactly.
That's fire.
It's generational work, y'all.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
This isn't like by next year.
Absolutely.
Like, I would love to continue the conversation. I'm sure it sounds like we will, but you know, our belief is that there needs to be a generation of young people who identify as designers, also as queens and kings, who then, when they're our age and having kids and bringing new life into this world, there's a new culture that they get to, and you know, that's generational work. And so we've got to be committed over the long haul to make it right and you know, answer these questions around impact and sustainability. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to drive is connection across generations. And if we do that with intention and purpose, and purpose being personal and communal well-being, if we do that for a generation and mess up all along the way, I still think it's a good, you know, that's my magic. That's what I'm passionate about, you know.
You know, I got one last question before we get out of here. But, you know, thinking on the work that you do, and I think I always look at teachers or educators that they have to bring this home. And you're dealing with these stories. You talk about the losses that you've experienced. You know, I particularly know of Stormaya and Karan, who passed this summer, and the impact that had on me and how that shaped how I'm moving from that time to into this year. And we've talked about how you're maintaining this for other folks, but how do you, as, not to give you too big of a name because I know how you are, you're very humble, but as the initiator of these spaces, how do you maintain your wellness and keep a straight head and kind of maintain that?
You know, and a lot of people know me as Mr. P.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people know me as Marshall. So that's one way. Like there is a Marshall and there is a Mr. P. And that may sound phony or
I get it. There's a Bakari and there's an Ahmed.
Exactly.
I get it.
And there are people who know me as that and call me as that, and I have to protect that because I have to know what it means to put on armor and be around a lot of loss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Secondhand trauma is real. It is now.
It is.
Because I'm connected to many people. It is also firsthand trauma. Right. On July 18th, 2019, an 11-year-old named Karan Brown was shot 12 times. Right. So these are real things that, you know, when you're burying students, when you're bringing like when you're seeing families bring life into this world too.
Right.
The other side of that, you inherit it. It becomes you. And so for me, it is about protecting, you know, my work-life balance as much as I can. But then also, if it ain't for P, then it's not for anybody. Because one of my responsibilities as a steward of this is that if I am not trying to pursue personal and communal well-being, if I'm trying to do this to other people,
it's not gonna work.
like I went to yoga today, not just because it is my job or it is my responsibility to make sure that, you know, 20 kids are starting their day with yoga on Wednesdays. I'm on the mat.
Yeah.
And I remember getting called out by them one time when I was working at the school. I was on my computer working.
They were like, yo, you gotta
Mr.
get out
P,
here.
why are you not on the mat with us? And that was 3 years ago. Ever since then, every Wednesday, you know, I do yoga now. So
It's crazy. You do yoga, but
I did yoga
because of them.
yesterday. I you know, show up to bougie yoga classes and every now and then. I mean, it is for me, Marshall, right, and for P, right. So I think I have to. Those are the two ways. You know, it's got to be. If it ain't for me, it's not for. It's fake. I'm just trying to make it for other people. Trying to do business. But I also have to have like just a Marshall time. You know what I'm saying?
I dig it, bro.
Mental, man.
Yeah,
I get it
for sure.
All right, so you know, we're gonna have to wrap this up, but I love to give the quick fire round, and I love this quick fire question, and I'm gonna ask you, but you've been in DC for a long time, so we're gonna end it. What is one thing you love about DC? One thing that you hate about DC?
I love Washingtonians. I am not a Washingtonian. I take that seriously. I truly love Washingtonians. I think they're some of the most special and unique people. What they've been through, what they've created, truly special. What I hate about DC, gentrification.
Number one answer.
Displacement of people.
Number one answer.
The displacement,
Yeah, ignoring people, putting away of people. It's crazy.
It's wild. Yeah, that is the number one most hated thing, and when it happens on every episode, literally.
I'm glad I thought of it because I was gonna say something lame like traffic because I don't like traffic, but then I realized why that is.
Yeah, right. It's gentrification, right?
All things.
I mean, like I remember one time, every time that I bring it up, it's like always like one aspect of what gentrification is. Like one thing that I absolutely detest in this city is actually how police officers and Metro PD treat students in metro stations when they get off of school. I absolutely hate that shit. And part of it, and it's crazy because it's like they bring out the riot gear or they're just ready to attack these students and everything. And I'll keep it all the way real with you. I've been involved in these situations because someone thought that I was a motherfucking student.
Boy.
You know? So like I walk in and it's like, yo, I see cops manhandling kids, and then I walk over and then it's like, yo, what the fuck? You're throwing kids around, and then they start to throw me around because they think, and I'm like, yo, I'm 30. Like, get the fuck off me. By
the way, you shouldn't be doing that shit to the kids in jail.
Right.
On top of it.
And I've dealt with that more times than I like to admit in Washington, D.C. And it's all a result of the gentrification in this space. But what do I love? All the Washingtonians. It's real because I'm not a Washingtonian at all either, but it's become home through Washingtonians.
Yeah.
And just being on the South Side, man, I tell you, I love DC, but I love the South Side. And I wish the South Side to have more economic power and just be that source for arts and creativity, because I know, and you know, that that's really where this is coming from. And no one's really acknowledging that. And so I love the South Side. And I want to work more on the South Side this year and bring more of that. So we've already started.
What do you love?
Man, I love a lot about DC. I've been here since I was 3 years old. I came from Algeria, and my parents actually have a really good story that I'll tell really quick from my mom. So I had lunch with her yesterday. At lunch, and I was like, yo, get the fuck out of the studio. But yeah, I came here when I was 3, and we got transplanted in Adams Morgan, right on Columbia Road. And I still run there every morning. I don't know why. I never really thought about it. And it was like, that area in the park, in Calamar Park, it was like my shit. I have a connection to it. And I had lunch with my mom's yesterday, and I was driving around. and she was like, she pointed at our old apartment, like this beat up old apartment. Like now it's like all bougied up, and she was like, that shit is not what that shit looked like when we first got here. And I was like, yo, tell me some more about that shit. Like, what was it like? She was like, yo, we were broke as fuck. Your dad was a pizza delivery man. We were living out here, and there's a 7-Eleven on that corner. I don't know if you guys are hip to it. There's a 7-Eleven there. He's like, there was a Moroccan lady. She used to come out with the milks and the fucking ice cream from the trucks before the manager got there. The only reason we could get fucking milk. and she knew we were something, like, right? There was community there. And she was just telling me all these stories, bro. And I was like, bro, fuck. And what I love about DC is just I love two things, the diversity of it, right? Just those stories exist. Even in Ems Morgan, man, like Ems Morgan is fucking full of all white people and living right behind it with the $1 billion houses, but right on that street, that shit's still happening, and the diversity there is incredibly powerful for me.
On the south side, that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's powerful too. Continue.
Second part is just the new age creative ecosystem that's being built here, and I think we have a lot to do with it, especially you, Marshall. Like, I'm so happy you came here today, because I've heard a lot about what you do. I did not know the depth, and I hope that a lot of people here listen to this and understand the depth.
Absolutely.
Understand it by showing up. I think that's that's what I would say. Would love to see you on the south side. I'd love to see you on a yoga mat behind a chessboard in a design lab.
I can help kids code. Is Brandon going to be running the
Brandon does the yoga, dog. That's Kepler.
He was with me this morning,
it's all fam, bro.
I know, I got to. Give me an invite, bro. Let me come through.
Yeah, come on, dog.
And we're going to get better at that. That's not just him, man. That's the thing. We got to, it's a lot of what we're in need of is human capital.
Yeah.
We've got the vision. We've got a vision that will grow and change and adapt. It's not perfect.
Right.
We've got what we want to do. It's just a matter of playing it by it being real and having the people and the power to do it, not just school year to school year, but like I said, for the next generation.
And that's it, man. That's the creative ecosystem we're being built. We are in a position to be able to make that happen. I think we should end this podcast by talking about how we can actually do that. Like, how can we reach out to the children, to the creative school? Like, what can anyone that's listening get involved? How can we get involved? How can they eat and get involved? How can we do anything to drive that impact and that messaging? Because I think not enough people know about it, and it needs to be front of mind, especially in the beginning of the year.
Soon come.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, we're going to wrap some things up. Where can we follow the Creative School, go online and find information, donate if we want to, and where can they follow Mr. P, see what he's doing?
That's real. Everything's on IG. We do have a website too, but it's at thecreative.school. And the website is the same, thecreative.school. No .com, just www.thecreative.school. You can follow the Queens and Kings and the story that they're trying to tell. You can donate, clicking the link in the bio. You can also follow me. I'm at 2_ Mr.P. 2 people took it before me, I think.
Yeah. The underscores will tell you.
I even, like, a couple years ago, I DM'd the dude. I was like, look, you don't need this as much as I do. Just letting you know. 2_ Mr.P. And be on the lookout too for the network behind all of this, which is at Stay Dreamin'. DRMN is how we spell dreaming, because it's a different type of dream.
I dig it.
Love it, man. We posted it on our page as well. We'll repost it, our recap with all the children, the school IG account.
That's the best. So appreciate y'all, man. This has been really enjoyable.
This is amazing, man.
The story that y'all are trying to tell, and again, I appreciate y'all for including the Queens and Kings in that story.
Our story is telling your story.
Hell yeah.
That's what it's about. That's why we did. That's exactly why we exist.
Win-win. I love it.
Yeah. Well, look, that's
Marshall,
been that.
Man, bro. Appreciate you,
Marshall. Thank you so much, Moss.
Yes.
My dog. This is your boy OG Baka. This has been Activated the Future Content, and we will catch y'all next time.
Peace.